How concerned are you about the size difference? I've got one more question after this, but the size difference, there's gonna be a lot of conversation about how big Errol usually is, the fact he can still make 147. You were undisputed at 140. How have you kind of managed that, prepared for what that difference might look like on fight night?
I don't worry about it. Listen, when you talk about size, you talk about Jeff Horn. They said Jeff Horn was one of the biggest welterweights, uh, other than Spence. When you talk about size, you talk about Sean Porter. You know, me and Sean Porter was in the amateurs together. I was at 132, he was at 165. You know, Benavidez, he was a big welterweight. Um, I don't know. Like, I'm always fighting big welterweights. So that's nothing new. I'm always the smaller guy. Even when I was at 140, I was a smaller guy. You know, 35, was tall, but I was the smaller guy. So being a smaller guy, never made me think, oh man, this guy is too big or no. It's cool. The bigger they is, the harder they fall.
No, he said that he made an interesting point that there's a responsibility upon fighters to kind of help limit maybe the amount of belts and maybe reduce the amount of titles. What can fighters do, fighters who are at the peak of the sport like y'all, do to help maybe kind of streamline some of these belts and eliminate some of these, secondary and tertiary belts?
I don't know. It's kind of hard because you got to understand when you coming up, everybody want to be a world champion. Everybody want to be a world champion. So a lot of people uh, get it confused when they see all these fighters with belts and these fighters saying, "Oh, I'm a world champion," or "I'm a champion," and this and that, and I got the WBC diamond or the intern this or the intern that, and it's like, okay, but what about this guy or what about this guy? He got a belt or he got a belt, you know. But it's kind of not like it's their fault because you got the champion. The champion may be hurt, and um, they want to get a shot at a title, and the champion might be hurt, and they may say, okay, well, you can fight for this interim title, but when the champion back, then you get a shot. Then when the champion come back, then he get to do other things. It's up to the sanction bodies to, have a model to where this guy got to fight this guy no matter what. Coming back, no money or nothing, or he got to drop the belt, or he got to fight his mandatory no matter what, or he got to drop the belt. Because if you notice, a lot of people, they be mandatory and they don't ever really get their shot because you get to do other things. When you got Jamar Charlo, he's still a champion. He ain't fought in over what, 2 years, stuff like that, like hogging up the belt. But you got Canelo, he going up and down weights, you know, uh, and there's people at 168 want to fight for titles. So I think it needs to be more structure with these sanction bodies, uh, to where other people can get opportunities to fight for these titles because that's what it's all about. Or they need to cancel all of them and just make it one champion and one division, kind of like the UFC.
But if you win this fight, you will be the first male boxer, anyway, of the four belt era to be undisputed in two different weight classes. That's a big deal, it seems to me. And I wonder, when you think about that in relation to all the other accomplishments that you've had, and you mentioned fighter of the year and, multiple division champion, lineal champions, all that business, where do you think being the first ever guy to do that, meaning win all four belts, be undisputed in two weight classes, where would you rank that on your list of, many, many accomplishments in your career?
Man, it'll be up there. It'll be up there. It'll be top three for sure. Like I said, I don't think nothing is gonna outdo the accomplishment that I accomplished by winning my first title in Scotland against Ricky Burns. I think that still is gonna hold a big spot, a big number one spot in my heart. Yeah, but this is gonna be a great fight, and it's gonna be a great feeling walking away with all those belts and becoming the first male boxer in the 4-belt era to actually win all 4 titles in 2 different divisions back to back. I feel like I started this trend of these fighters want to become undisputed. If you look, before I became undisputed, look what Bernard Hopkins, Jermaine Taylor, that was way back then, so that was a great accomplishment. But now you see it more frequently, you see it happening more often, and that's a great thing. And I think it's going to lead to a lot of fights being made and a lot of fighters challenging themselves and daring themselves to be great to try to accomplish the same thing.
Errol's been on the record that he cuts, 20, 30 pounds just to make 147. He's quote unquote the big welterweight. Could you give us an insight on how much weight you need to cut, and if you feel like at all you might be outgrowing the weight class?
I gotta cut like 5 pounds, man. I cut like 5 pounds, man. I'm good on weight.